These are the top 15 interior offensive linemen in the 2024 NFL Draft. What is going on, everybody? It is Alex coming back at you with another video. Today, it's a great day for offensive linemen, the Hog Mollies. I have been grinding the tape out, and it's been absolutely awesome. We found some of the guys who I never thought I'd be putting as high as I do, and then some guys I was extremely disappointed in. So stay tuned because it's going to be an in-depth breakdown of all these guys. If you are new, feel free to join the community. We are on the way to 10K, and that's going to be great. I hear thunder in the background because I live in Dallas, and it's quite nice because it's been pretty much a glorified heating lamp in this whole entire damn city for the past couple years, or past couple months at least. So nice to have a little bit of rain. Let's get right into this. Let's have a little bit of fun. Before I jump in, I did not grade Christian Mahogany because, he missed the entire last season with an ACL tear, but he was actually graded pretty damn highly before that going into the last draft season. Have to give him a little bit of a shout out, but also this is a great way to introduce the grading scale. So it does go from most important to least. So pass blocking, run blocking, kind of a big thing. Anchor. So for those of you guys who do not understand what anchor means, it's can you hold up to somebody pushing you back? And that's a big thing for me. It's another reason why I'm sometimes extremely low on players that people are really high on at the tackle position. I'm not extremely low on Olu Fashanu, but compared to the public consensus, significantly lower. That's one of the main reasons. Mechanics. Do you have good hand placement, which does factor into hands as well, but sometimes categories can work together. Do you have good foot movement? Do you have good foot placement? Do you have a good base? Do you sit low? There's a lot of factors that go into that. Maybe it should be a higher point category. I don't know. Every year we're finding out, but so far it's been pretty reliable. Power, pretty self-explanatory. Athleticism, pretty self-explanatory. IQ is how do you process the play? Can you pass off a defender? When you see a stunt, do you know how to handle yourself? When you're moving downfield, do you know how to handle yourself? Hands, talked about it, keep it inside. If I see these guys hugging dudes around the outside, I'm coming for y'all. And there's a couple of these dudes who definitely have a big issue with that. So we'll talk about it. Mentality, I don't like linemen who give up. One of the few positions I still have that as a grade. And then frame, self-explanatory. My number one interior offensive lineman just got his ass whooped in week number 1 of college football. But that's because he went up against the same guy who had the same effect against him last year in David Van. So if you guys are NC State fans, would love for you to drop a comment talking about David Van because that guy's a beast. Anchor is an issue with Christian Haynes. And I think that I fell in love with him last year. He was in my way too early 2024 mock, and I had him graded significantly lower because at that time there wasn't a ton of UConn tape, and as the year progresses, naturally there's going to be more UConn tape that's put out. See, I don't work for a football team. I don't work for that, so I have to go off of the tape that's publicly available or that I go and subscribe to on Patreon. So we're trying to get more and more tape, but sometimes things are limited. Luckily, now there's a lot more UConn tape, and it's against good teams. And NC State was one of those games. He had 3 pressures he allowed last year. 2 of them were in that game. So I was like, let's watch that game because I want to see how players fail. Because naturally, you're not going to succeed every single rep in the NFL. Just you got to see how they fail. And it was David Van. Every single time you went up against anybody else, super successful. David Van just is his kryptonite, I swear. But Christian Haynes, the most athletic interior offensive lineman that I've probably ever studied. This dude at 313 pounds moves like he's 295. He has the power of somebody who is probably close to that 320 to 330 range. And he just is a monster. I love him. I think he does need to work on his refinement in terms of bringing his hands inside. Mechanics, they're much better than I originally expected, but he still needs to get up in terms of his ability to, be more refined with his feet. Don't potentially cross your feet when you're on the move. That's the primary issue. When he's on the move doing an outside zone block, can you make sure you are square to the target? That's one of my big issues with him. But that's a one off-season fix with a good O-line coach and a good mentor. To me, that's worth betting on. Now, other issues I do have, if you guys see a B range, that is really good. So I'm talking about his mechanics being tweakable. He already has great mechanics overall. It's just in certain situations, that's where I saw David Van get the best of him, for example. But I don't know if I've seen very many guys who can absolutely maul the way Christian Haynes can. Again, if you see anything above a B minus, it's really good. Go down those lower point categories, I get a little bit soft and I give them a little bit of cushion there. But, it's very rare that you'll ever see an A or an A plus. Very rare that you'll see a B plus. So he is my blue chip surprise player that I never saw coming. I just fell in love with him. Every single rep was just awesome. And even in that game where he let up 2 pressures to David Van, he still performed very, very well. So good for Christian Haynes because, I know I'm going to be in the super minority just like I was about Joe Milton, like I was about Anthony Richardson for a while. And I'm not going to say that it's 100% going to be correct because I hit on Anthony Richardson being good way before he was. But I'm just going to be 100% honest with y'all. And it's a player I'm really passionate about. And I think it's a player that you guys will like too. Next, we got Beaux Limmer. Beau's a fun player. My big issue with him comes down to how far forward he leans. And he's a little bit lighter, right? He's 7 pounds lighter. And I believe he's 2 inches taller at 7 pounds lighter. So it's a unique frame for sure for an interior offensive lineman because he has tackle height, but he also is like fringe guard weight. And I like seeing that he's above 300, but you can tell there's some points where he does get a little bit worried about getting pushed back and he leans too far forward. When you lean too far forward, that's when defenders yank or they go, bye, bitch. So it just puts you in a really bad situation. I wanted him to sit a little bit lower. When he is pushing, he has really good leg power. He is really powerful for his size. But his legs get really close. And again, when your legs get close and a defender goes yoink, you don't have the stability or the balance to be able to handle that. So at the next level, I'm a bit concerned. But one off season, again, these are super easy to tweak fixes. And I think he'll definitely be able to get up there. As you'll see, I believe he can get his hands a little bit more inside. A plus is pretty common for those. He did give up on a couple reps early. I don't like that personally. I do get a little bit worried when I do see guys give up on reps early, but to be fair, again, it's not something that's a big concern. If it were, then I would be dropping that grade well below a B plus. But it was something I saw. I saw sometimes guys stop blocking mid play. I don't like that. But great athlete overall. Smart. It's in my notes. I said I believe I would just take him in the first round. He is a first round quality player. Don't think he'll go first, but the fact he has center because he's moving over Stromberg, and then he played guard last year, versatility, that should add something too. So he's a really good player. I have a lot of respect for Beaux Limmer. Then you got Troy Fautanu, who is a tackle, but I studied his one game that he was a guard last year and honestly did a really solid job. Now, I could tell why he's not projected to be a tackle. He has some really short arms. I don't know if they're above 32 inches. So I'd be concerned with that for sure. And he played a lot like a tackle when he was playing at the guard role, understandably so. But at the same time, he didn't really understand how to hold up a pocket. And I fell in love with him. Again, he's my number 3 interior offensive lineman. I just got to present the negative facts at the same time. He is a mauler in the run game, and he has great refiring ability with his hands, and he does a pretty good job keeping his hands inside. But when it comes to his refinement and comfortability as a guard, it was not there. Again, he plays tackle. It's okay to have those lapses, but I'm going to tell you guys how I feel based off of the tape I saw. And he is a feisty dude. He can block, honestly, really well, but at the same time, he needs refinement. Again, I don't know if this is a one-off season. This is probably going to be a 2 or 3 season project here. But I think he can start right away and be solid. If you want him to be a bona fide starter for 5-10 years, you're going to need to put some more time and investment into it. He definitely seemed to sometimes slip up in terms of his position on the field, position on the pocket, because, again, he usually solidifies the boundary. He's not usually the guy who maintains a boundary that's already set by a tackle and a guard. But I forgot to talk about dream fits here. Sorry, guys. But a team like the Jets that could use a guard/tackle hybrid, I don't think they need the guard role, but they might be intrigued with him as a pure tackle. AVT kind of has been of that similar mold. Washington definitely could use a left guard. I don't like Chris Paul. And then the Saints are going to be a commonality on this. Apologies about not mentioning the fact that Bengals, Niners, or Colts in here, but they're going to be featured later on. We'll talk about it. regardless, I want to tell you guys just more about the prospect. The dream fits are there for kind of more fun than anything. Next, we got Donovan Jackson. So, really unique image that Ohio State posted of him. But, we ball. Donovan's a fun player. I think he'll end up being maybe the first guard taken. Very athletic. And, damn it, I didn't change the color on that to yellow. Doesn't matter. It's just a UI thing. But when it comes to his overall game, you can tell why people love him. He was right next to Paris Johnson. So hyper athlete next to a hyper athlete. Some people just didn't really think he was as athletic as he was. But he is. He's an awesome player. Again, a lot of these guards have a big asset in the run game. Very hard to find guards that are more pass pro ready than run blocking heavy. But again, pass protection is a big deal for me. So that's also why sometimes a player that might be better in one area than the other will randomly be significantly higher. And I think that, he's a balanced blocker. You see that yourself. But, he's not somebody I'm going to trust to be a mauler. I want him in a zone blocking system. I want him to use his athleticism to get out in front of the defensive lineman, because that's what his best trait is going to be, is just getting in front of people, because he can control them when he's there. But I'm not going to trust him to absolutely maul someone over like Cooper Beebe, who we'll talk about soon. He's just somebody who, very similar, honestly. I think I had a very similar grade with Paris Johnson, if I'm going to think about it. He does remind me a lot of Paris Johnson. 6'4", 320 is a tackle build too. And he has long arms. He could end up actually being a tackle. But teams that could use somebody who's hyper athletic, I just thought of the Bears. The Bears would be such a good spot. They're still trying to figure out one guard spot, and this guy would be a perfect fit. Obviously, you got Ohio State connection. They never played together, but, they obviously come from a similar background. But Donovan Jackson would be able to, get out in front. They do like to do the screen game there. He's going to be a major asset for a team that likes to do that. The Dallas Cowboys always could use some extra help on the O-line, even though they just got Terrence Steele today to sign to a 5-year contract, which is great because only $10 million a year guaranteed. Zach Zinter is next. This dude, really short arms. That's my big issue with him. Really short arms, and that means defenders usually control him during the rep, which leads to a pretty poor anchor. But when this dude latches on, and when you don't have the size advantage, this guy's going to maul the hell out of you. A lot of the times when Donovan Edwards would have his biggest runs, Blake Corum have his biggest runs, it's behind Zach Zinter and probably Olusegun Oluwatimi. So there's a big reason for that. They just know how to position and open up holes. I love seeing offensive linemen that know how to turn the defender, because rather than, blocking like this and your running back having to go like that, it's split open. Now you have a hole. And that's exactly what he does. He knows how to open a hole really well. And I love that. Again, you're seeing A grades. These are really good guard prospects. This is a very good interior offensive line class. I think that because of how good it is, it's going to probably slip down a little bit in the necessity category. But, 6'6", 322. I'm surprised he's 6'6". That is a big surprise. But, there are definitely concerns with him in terms of his footwork, his balance concerns when it comes to just him getting his hands inside the pads. Again, you'll see that. Just not a big fan of it. I do feel like sometimes he doesn't pick up on the right guy to block when there is a blitz. I do have that problem with him, but it's not bad. Again, the C range is not a negative category. It's just more of a neutral category. But, overall, great player. Great player. 73.75. At this point, during my defensive interior video, it was definitely not 73. So, again, big props to Zach Zinter. He's a really fun prospect to watch. But teams, right, keep reading these damn dream fits. But, I don't think I really need to explain much. There are teams that could use a right guard. Surprise. But, again, the Bengals, I could always just see them wanting to add extra depth, or at least a high level backup at the very minimum there in the second round, who needs a little bit more refinement from your veteran presence there. But the Rams could always use it because Avila is going to be the left guard for the long haul. And then the Dolphins could always just use help. It is what it is. I try to vary it up as much as I can. But Cooper Beebe, Yeah, I mean, this guy's obviously seen as like the creme de la creme of the interior offensive line class, and he's a good player. I'm not going to shame on him. I think that he's, again, transitioned from a tackle to a guard, so he doesn't have the nitty gritties down, but he does a pretty solid job. He's just kind of a little clunky. I don't feel like his foot movement is very polished. When it comes to, I mean, at least he gets his hands inside. That's the big plus. But, he has the brains, he has the power, he's super well balanced. I think that maybe my biggest issue with him just comes down to the refinement of his game. I don't know if he's effective, but I don't know if that effectiveness will be translating to the next level. Again, he is a little bit slow. He's a big dude. He's 6'4", 332 pounds. He is a rough tackle build. But, when it comes down to it, I don't trust him as a tackle. I watched 5 reps and called him a straight up fat ass. And you know what? He was at that time. And he's kind of still a little bit chunky. But he can work as an interior offensive lineman because he's not that chunky. He's just chunky for a tackle. And again, he does fight through the entire rep. I have a lot of respect for him as a person as well as a player. I just don't really think he fits very many systems. Again, I'm going to look at teams that, one, either value guys from, the Big 12 or the AAC and stuff like that, like the Cowboys, because, again, K-State comes through here quite a bit. And then Commanders, already talked about Chris Paul being a potential starter for them in the long run. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. And then I've always thought about the Jaguars potentially upgrading at guard because they really need to. But overall, honestly, a really good player. I have nothing against Cooper Beebe. It's just I have more of an affinity for some other players rather than a negative knock on him. Cedric Van Pran is next. And yes, my number 7 player has a 73.25 grade. Just keep that in mind because it is telling y'all how good this class is. He's the definition of balanced. He's just effective all around. I don't really see him mauling dudes, and I do see him getting moved quite a bit. But when it comes to just the overall effectiveness, can you pass block, can you run block, he can do it really well. And I think a lot of the issues I've had with Georgia linemen come from their overall ability to process because it's more of the refinement of the mind that comes with a lot of dedication. And a lot of times when there are 5-star offensive linemen, I've seen them not continue to put in the work. I haven't seen a year-over-year progression from them, but it leads to really good projects. But when it comes to teams like Georgia, where they're really effective, there's no real need to continue to refine your game and get better. I'm not saying that Cedric Van Pran does that, but I'm saying I haven't seen any improvement of his anchor or his power over the years that I've seen him. And, I get excited for Cedric Van Pran. I like putting him in my first-round mocks, but he is worth a second-rounder to me, a rough second-rounder, maybe a third. And it's a good player. He's a good player. He's just not going to be someone who's dominant. And I don't know if I'm necessarily going to pull the trigger on someone who's not dominant, but I can see a team like the Niners, the Saints, or even the Dolphins being very excited to add somebody on the interior that's just going to be a bona fide plug-and-play guy. He's not going to be a top 5 center. He's not going to be an all-pro. But he's going to be a good player, nonetheless. A really good player. And what I love about him, he gets his hands inside. That's finally we get to see that. But overall, good player. I just don't think that his refinement of his game has really come to anything that is, translatable for power or anchor, which to me is a big deal. Next, we got Drake Nugent here, transfer from Stanford to Michigan. He's a fun player to watch, and it's kind of sad. I literally put this in there. It's I'm really conflicted because the one main issue he has is his anchor, and it's really scary. He has some really high-end reps, and he has some beautiful plays. But when you can't hold your own versus a defensive interior, it's worrisome. It is. So just got to keep that in mind. 6'1", 300 is really small. I don't like my centers being 6'1". I just don't. I want them to have a little bit of size. I need to have. You don't need it. Again, there are undersized centers that work really well, but the chances of it working are significantly less. If I couldn't do it, I wouldn't put him at 8. So just got to keep that in mind. But he's a fun center to watch. He has most of the traits that you could be looking for. not the most athletic dude in the world. You know, again, it is what it is, but you know, he's a super polished blocker overall. It's that one big issue that I have. I have one big red flag, but I can see a team like Arizona or the Texans, them being open for an interior offensive lineman / center to be able to come in, because I don't like Juice Scruggs. I just never was a fan, and I'm happy to be wrong, but just gotta call it as it is. Isaiah Adams is going to be a stud backup who has starter potential in the NFL. I really like this guy, really do. You know, he's one of those, I was like, oh, another Illinois player. Like, come on. Illinois should have been so much better last year. They had Julian Pearl, who I have even higher graded than this. I think he's a 73 or 74. So, like, really good grade on Julian Pearl. And then there's this dude, too. He's a mauler in the run game, but he doesn't get his hands inside all the time, and he needs a lot of refinement. I don't think his footwork's that great. I don't think Julian Pearl's was necessarily either. But, you know, when it comes to the positioning in the pocket, have that issue as well. He leaves himself susceptible to inside counters. There are genuine issues, and he also doesn't really pick up the right rusher sometimes. It's another issue. But for a guy that you're going to be picking up probably in day 3, this dude could start for you. Straight up. He's going to be a star left guard if he goes to the right spot. I think a team like the Eagles, where you can sit him for a year, 2, 3, 4 years, and just have a guy there in case of injury, this guy's going to be a stud guy to fill in. I can guarantee you that. One of my favorite players, pound for pound, in the class, just because of the fact that a lot of people are counting him out. He's a little bit older. So yeah, he doesn't have refinement, but it's not really a place that has shown any form of ability to refine their players. So I just got to give him a shout out there. We got Mason McCormick next. See, this guy's fun. Honestly, I don't know if I could say top 250. I think some team's going to be crazy about him, take him top 100. But this dude is all on the shoulders. He's like straight up like massaging that shit. He's not going for like, he's like, we ain't getting sued for that. Like, we're going to go right on the outside. I don't like that. I personally want to see my offensive linemen have control from inside, because you know what? When the defender yanks, it's not a holding call as much. You know, you're naturally going to get a holding call. But this dude is as raw can be. He is a monster, though. Monster. I am so excited to see where he goes. Maybe I could send him to Bill Belichick. That maybe should have been a dream fit of mine, but this dude's going to be like a 3 or 4 year project. But he is a dominant guy. When you see him coming downhill, I mean, look at it. He has the fucking neck pad. Like, it's ridiculous. He's going to be a beast. But it's going to be a long-term project. And I emphasize the word long. He just has so many issues when it comes to his feet, when it comes to his hands. But he's a fun player. Fun player nonetheless. Xavier Truss. Definition of hot and cold. He has some god tier reps and some god tier games, but when it comes down to consistency, I will see him give up a 3 pressure game here and there, like at an unfortunately high rate. And I wish it wasn't, because 6'7", 320, that's a Marius Mims size. Like, he is a tackle build. He has good arm size as well, but when it comes down to his overall play style, he is similar on Mason McCormick level in terms of refinement. Leans too far forward, you know, just leaves himself susceptible to counters. That's just not setting himself up for the best case scenario. And when you're that tall, like, that's when it really starts to get a little bit worrisome, when you can't get low. So I think that he's far from a lost cause. My biggest issue with him was the fact that this dude had no idea where he was on the field. And he's the lowest IQ grade I've ever given, I think, an offensive or defensive lineman. It's up there with Perry and Winfrey. Like, it's rare to see an offensive lineman look clueless on the field. And he's looked a little clueless. So this guy's going to be a 5-year project. So I'm putting some teams in there that have some form of good mentorship. Then you got Javion Cohen. I really like Javion Cohen. My issue with him, similar to a lot of guys, he leans forward and compensates a lot for the fact that he's not 315 to 320 pounds. He has a very poor anchor. But I think that's, like, I've seen the reps where it's certainly, you know, able to be fixed. I just haven't seen him fix it yet. So this is a guy who I'm really excited to beat my grade right now and just continue boosting him up the board. I just continued watching him play, and I felt like I was jumping from one ship to the other. I was like, oh, this guy's a really good player. Could be an NFL starter. It's like, oh, Jesus. Like, I don't know if this guy's a practice squad guy. Builds up consistency, Javian. We know that you have the talent. Now, put it to practice every single rep. Definitely one of the smarter players of the class, can pick up on blitzes really well, and he passes off stunts really well. Like, hands down, like, this guy deserves the respect that he gets. But I'm just a little bit concerned when, you come back after, tweaking maybe your ankle or something, because he left the game for like 2 plays. And then all of a sudden, you're just lunging and leaning, and you're just ruining the overall momentum of the game. And he ended up continuing to do that after. And it's like, it was a shame. It was a shame for sure. Then we got Zach Frazier, who is a top 5 center for Mel Kiper. So you guys can check out that video as well. Ended up checking him out, and he's a fun player. I don't know if he's going to ever get reps in the NFL, but he's certainly a good depth piece. He does have issues processing, which as a center, unless you have a good QB, I don't like that. But, if your QB can set you up for success, I think he is a solid asset to a team. I think he deserves to be on a roster, but maybe he's a fringe practice squad guy. He needs time to develop, but I've seen the reps where I really do like him. He does pop off. I just need to see a lot more of it. That's the big issue I have with Zach Frazier, is it's not consistent enough, and it's not high level enough to where I'd really ever want him taking snaps for my team. Like, I think I'd be comfortable with him coming in an emergency situation, like a practice squad guy, but I'd still be a little bit concerned. Matt Jones, number 14. Matt, I have a love-hate relationship with. I used to have him in my top 64 because certain games he would show out, right? But this dude just ended up being way too inconsistent. Balance concerns are going off the charts. He's falling over left, right, and center. His balance is just not good. He doesn't sit right. He leans too much. There's just a lot of issues I have with Matt Jones. But he's a solid depth player because he has some, he does have good hand placement. He has good arm size. There's just, I don't want to call him a UDFA, but I just don't think he's really good in anything. I just don't. But he's not really bad in anything either. So, take that as you will. I wasn't really impressed by him, but a team that's looking for depth would probably be one to get the most out of him. Ladarius Henderson. So, big issue with him is that I checked out his snap count. He only played 9 reps, so he's not even starting as the left tackle for Michigan. He is a guard. Well, he's now a tackle, but he was a guard there for ASU. Again, kind of like a jack of all trades, master of absolutely nothing. And not really a good jack of all trades, kind of like a Walmart jack of all trades. He has some good reps in there, but it's the inconsistency that got me the most. And that's just the unfortunate thing about this class. There's a lot of inconsistencies, but within the top 10, hell, let's look at my number 10 guy, Mason McCormick. Okay. Like, in my top 7, you're getting somebody who's probably going to be a starter at the next level. And that's very rare to find. You don't find 7 legitimate starters on the interior. So, and a couple of them, I believe, are centers. Maybe only Cedric Van Prantis. But you're getting really good value in this class. So, like, me crapping on Ladarius Henderson doesn't mean anything. He's a good player. It's just how many teams are going to want a depth offensive lineman. Probably a lot because we fortunately cycle through him. But Ladarius he didn't wow me. He was far from bad. I have plenty of other offensive linemen that were graded lower than him. I personally just didn't get that connection. Again, C is adequate, but adequate doesn't always work at the NFL level. So take that as you will. I need to start doing this in reverse order, man. So build up the excitement at the end. But that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the far side. Peace.